It sounds like so much projection, and I wonder if she was pimped out when she was younger. Of course, she sounds evil, and I'm not making excuses, but why is the biggest question for me. So sorry, Lovey. Why used to be the biggest question for me, too, so I understand what you're saying. And to answer your question, so this is about my mother and my mother's sexualizing of me as a small child and a bigger child. And when I was 17, trying to hook me up with this wealthy older man and the whole nine yards. I don't know that all of this was in the video that you put this comment on, but just for a little bit more context of how my mother treated me and how she pushed me in the direction of certain individuals, certain men, that sort of thing. And the answer is, in a way, my mother was pimped out as a child because my grandmother, she's dead, like left the earth dead, whereas my mother's dead to me and still physically on the earth kind of thing. My grandmother was the facilitator of CSA with my grandfather. She was an alcoholic. And while my mother is the sociopath and narcissist, my grandmother was the OG, the original gaslighter, the original narcissist, to my knowledge, because I didn't really know anyone from a generation above her other than my great grandmother. And I was really young and I loved her, like she was everything to me kind of thing. And I didn't have enough time or an old enough age to be able to see her through any other filter to understand any dynamics between her and the rest of my family or anything else that went on. My grandmother, I have a lot of knowledge of who she was in relationship, particularly with my mother and even with her other daughters. There were 3 sisters. One of the sisters married very, very, very wealthy twice. And she happens to be the empath. So the first time around, she married an absolute malignant narcissist, philanderer, cheated, affair for 5 years, you name it, he did it, awful human being, although I loved him because he was the best uncle ever. But I was a child. And so she married and did the love that she knew. My grandmother was particularly proud of that marriage, and I guess she was fine with the next one. Like, I don't have a lot of memory around it. And the next one was actually a very nice man, and my aunt was married to him until he passed away. They were married, I think, over 30 years. But the first one, my grandmother, oh, he has this and he has that, and look how they live, and did you see the jewelry, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And she would speak that way about any woman who was married to somebody who was uber wealthy, successful, like there was nothing that they could do that was wrong. So what did her daughters learn from that? Well, to be loved and accepted by my grandmother, you had to marry up. And you don't have the capability of earning on your own, doing on your own. And that's not even something that's like written in the stars sort of thing. Some of that was cultural too and generational, and I recognize that. Because of that, I think that my mother likely felt what I felt from her, an extreme need to find somebody who was wealthy and going to take care of her. And because she was so focused on that, and because she herself is such a broken person, marrying or engaging with someone based on characteristics and love and connection wasn't where it was at for her. My mother was raised to be a parasite, and she tried to do the same thing with me. And she would hate my life now because I live on my own, and yes, I'd love to have a partner, and yes, I am dating, and yes, I'm looking for love and all those nice things and whatever. I do want that in my life. That being said, it took me a really long time to recognize that everything that my mother taught me I couldn't do for myself was a lie. I run a successful business. I actually have 2. I work really hard. I love what I do. I'm a therapist. I work with the survivors of systems like mine, what I come from. And I feel really blessed where my life is now. I've done a lot of things, accomplished a lot of things. And I had to figure out on my own, and through the support of therapy, the therapy I went through the support of my close friends, one in particular whose name is also Marnie, I learned that I was actually a really capable person and that I didn't need to have a dependency on somebody else for finance. My mother never learned that. And my mother is also, because she's a sociopath and a narcissist, she likes to take from people. She derives pleasure from that. She is sadistic. So there's another layer there. Long, short answer. In my relatives of origin on my mother's side, I really don't like to refer to them as family. We were all, as females, groomed to marry a wallet. And the result of that with my mother was 6 marriages. One was a domestic partner. He didn't actually marry her, but I think they were common law. I think, not 100% sure. And only 2 of those men escaped with their lives. 1 died of cancer. So 4 deaths, 1 that actually has a viable, verifiable explanation around them. Let's get to the why part. My mother raised me to be who she was. Why aren't I? You're never going to find the answer why certain people choose differently, other than the fact that they choose differently. And you're never going to make sense out of things that will never make sense. For example, child abuse never makes sense. At some point, the best thing that we can do for ourselves is to recognize that there's not going to be an answer. There is no why. And the acceptance of that is actually the closure.